While Americans are paying more for Japanese cars, is Japan preparing a financial blow that could shake the U.S. economy? U.S.-Japan auto trade war. The U.S. has continuously raised tariffs on automobile parts imported from Japan, particularly in the electric vehicle industry. A 25% tariff on auto parts has driven up the prices of Toyota, Honda, and Nissan cars in the U.S., causing these models to lose their major competitive edge advantage in the market. According to the latest report from the Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association, Japanese car sales in the U.S. have dropped by about 7% in the first quarter of 2025. Meanwhile, U.S. automakers such as Ford and General Motors are attracting more customers due to government protection policies. This price increase not only reduces consumers' purchasing power but also harms Japanese automakers as profits sharply decline and production costs rise. Japan responds beyond words. However, Japan is not just responding with tough rhetoric. In fact, it has started selling off a large portion of the U.S. Treasury bonds it holds. Japan is currently the second largest creditor to the U.S., with over $1.1 trillion in bonds. In February 2025, Japan sold $30 billion worth of U.S. bonds, and this decision weakened the U.S. dollar and increased interest rates in the U.S., creating significant financial pressure. This is a high-risk financial strategy, as Japan is using its financial influence to directly affect the U.S. economy. Additionally, Japan is shifting its car production lines out of the U.S., with a significant portion of manufacturing moving to Mexico and Southeast Asia. This helps Japan minimize the impact of tariffs while still being able to supply products to the U.S. market without facing high tax rates. Japanese automakers like Toyota and Honda are heavily investing in manufacturing plants in Mexico and Southeast Asia, where labor costs are lower and unaffected by the protectionist tax policies from the U.S. This not only affects the U.S., but also makes international investors more cautious about purchasing U.S. bonds, especially as Japan is reducing its investment in this market. Future strategies. If the U.S. continues to make tougher decisions, Japan may escalate its retaliation measures. One possibility is to limit the export of core technologies, particularly solid-state batteries, which are leading the electric vehicle industry. Japan, with automakers like Toyota and Honda, is at the forefront of this technology. If the U.S. imposes tariffs on Japanese electric vehicle technologies, Japan might halt the export of solid-state batteries, which would significantly hinder the development of electric vehicles in the U.S., especially at a time when the U.S. is trying to boost electric vehicle production. Additionally, Japan could increase retaliatory tariffs on imported U.S. goods, directly impacting consumer products, machinery, electronic components, and even food. Cooperation with the EU and market diversification. While continuing to strengthen its cooperation with the U.S., Japan is actively expanding its trade relations with the European Union, EU. This will help Japan reduce its dependence on the U.S. market while creating additional opportunities for its automotive industry to grow in other markets. The EU has signed trade agreements with Japan, helping to expand the market and mitigate the risks from the possibility of further U.S. tariff hikes. At the same time, Japan is increasing electric vehicle production in these markets to maintain its competitive edge. The EU is not only an important market for Japanese cars, but also a strategic partner in providing new electric vehicle technologies, ensuring that Japan is not left behind in the global trend. Will Japan be able to force the U.S. to change its tax policies, or will the U.S. continue to take a hard stance, causing widespread financial impacts? Stay with us to find out more in the next video.
Yesterday, President Trump addressed last week's stock market turmoil caused by confusion around his tariff agenda.
Japan's shocking move, economic retaliation, that worries the U.S.? Financial markets in turmoil. Japan has just taken a step that could shake the U.S. economy. They are quietly selling off large amounts of U.S. Treasury bonds, an unprecedented move. What does this mean? Is Japan trying to put pressure on the U.S.? And how big will the impact be? Japan cuts U.S. bonds. A warning for Washington? For decades, Japan has been one of the largest creditors of the U.S., holding hundreds of billions of dollars in Treasury bonds. This has helped finance U.S. debt and stabilize the dollar. But recently, Tokyo has significantly reduced its holdings of U.S. bonds. According to the latest financial reports, Japan has sold tens of billions of dollars in U.S. Treasuries over the past few months. This is a concerning move. Why is Japan doing this? The answer may lie in the growing trade tensions between the two countries, particularly over U.S. tariffs on Japanese electric vehicles. The U.S. government has imposed high tariffs on imported EVs, including those from major Japanese automakers like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan. Tokyo is not happy, and now Japan seems to be using its financial weapon to retaliate against the U.S. But the bigger question is, if Japan continues to sell off U.S. bonds, what will happen to the dollar and the global economy? The U.S. protects its EV industry. Japan strikes back. To understand this, we need to look at the U.S. strategy. The U.S. is pushing to develop its domestic EV industry, aiming to compete with China and Europe. American automakers like Tesla, General Motors, and Ford are receiving massive government support, while imported EVs are hit with high tariffs. But why is Japan affected so much? Because Japanese automakers lead the world in hybrid and EV technology. For example, Toyota pioneered hybrid cars with the Prius. Nissan was one of the first to mass-produce EVs with the Nissan Leaf. Honda is rapidly expanding its EV lineup. Japan believes it has superior technology, yet the U.S. is blocking its products with tariffs. And that's why Tokyo is retaliating financially. Cutting U.S. Treasury bond holdings sends a clear message. If the U.S. continues protectionism, Japan will stop supporting the U.S. economy by buying its debt. The key question now: how long can Washington endure this pressure? Is Japan trying to reduce its dependence on the dollar? Another major reason for Japan's bond sell-off is its desire to reduce dependence on the U.S. dollar. The global financial system is shifting. China is reducing its dollar reserves and promoting the yuan. Russia has cut U.S. bond holdings following economic sanctions. Other Asian nations, like South Korea and India, are diversifying their foreign assets. Now, Japan may be following this trend. Tokyo could redirect its capital into Asian markets, strengthening cooperation with China, South Korea, and ASEAN to build a more independent regional financial system. This could accelerate the decline of U.S. dollar dominance. So the big question is, could Japan's move be the first step in a major shift in the global economy? If Japan continues selling bonds, how will the U.S. respond? Can the U.S. ignore Japan's warning? If Japan continues to sell U.S. bonds, the dollar could be seriously impacted. A worst-case scenario could unfold. Dollar value declines, increasing import costs and causing inflation in the U.S. Higher U.S. bond interest rates, raising borrowing costs for the U.S. government. Global financial market instability, creating a domino effect on the world economy. The U.S. has two choices: compromise with Japan, reducing EV tariffs to maintain financial stability, continue the confrontation, accepting financial and trade risks. Both options carry major risks. The biggest question now: what will the U.S. do next? We are at a critical moment in economic history, and this may be just the beginning. Stay tuned for the next developments. Canada, a longtime energy partner, has shut down the $103 billion oil export pipeline to the U.S., leaving Washington unable to respond in time. Canada stops supplying oil and gas to the U.S. Canada, the largest energy supplier to the U.S., shocked Washington with its decision to halt energy exports. This immediately caused a surge in gas, oil, and electricity prices in the U.S., leading to unprecedented disruptions in the lives of millions of Americans. How will Americans cope with the rising prices of essential goods, including fuel, food, and public services? From daily commutes to flights, everything is being affected. The aviation industry faces increased fuel costs, while transport, manufacturing, and many other sectors are struggling due to the soaring energy prices. The reason behind Canada's decision: for years, the U.S. has imposed heavy trade tariffs on Canadian goods, believing that its neighboring country wouldn't dare to retaliate. But that belief is now being shattered. Canada had long warned that this could happen, yet Washington paid little attention. Eventually, a strategic shift was made. Canada not only stopped oil exports to the U.S., but also signed long-term contracts with other countries, particularly China and India, the two largest energy markets in the world. This is not just a political reaction, but also a long-term economic strategy to reduce dependence on the U.S. With these new agreements, Canada has opened the door to becoming one of the leading energy suppliers for major global economies, Europe and Asia, ready to replace the U.S. So when the U.S. suddenly loses its critical energy supply from Canada, who will step in to replace it? Europe and Asia have quickly stepped up. Canada has signed billion-dollar agreements to supply oil, gas, and electricity to countries in need of a stable energy source, especially Europe, which is seeking to replace energy supplies from Russia. At the same time, China and India have secured long-term agreements to ensure energy supplies for their rapidly growing economies. Canada's export ports and pipeline systems are now not only directed towards North America, but also shifting their energy flow towards Asia and Europe. This not only creates a massive shock for the U.S., but also completely changes the global energy balance. The U.S. now faces not only an energy crisis, but also loses its strategic position in the international energy competition. With the loss of hydroelectric supply from Canada, states like New York, California, and Michigan are facing the risk of rolling blackouts, especially during the winter months. Electricity prices have soared, and some regions are even considering implementing peak-hour usage restrictions to avoid overloads. Major industries, such as automobile, steel, and food production, are starting to cut production due to rising energy costs. This not only impacts the economy but also threatens tens of thousands of jobs, particularly in energy-dependent sectors. Many businesses are facing severe profits decline, with some even closing down certain production facilities. This is forcing Americans to witness significant changes in their daily lives, from prices to job opportunities. The energy winter approaches. You've probably noticed the U.S. is facing a challenging energy winter. Gas, oil, electricity, airline tickets, and goods have all surged in price. Families and businesses are shouldering unprecedented inflation, and everything is becoming more expensive than ever before. The electricity and fuel systems once dependent on Canada's supply are now paralyzed, rendering Washington's efforts almost futile. In reality, these events are forcing the U.S. economy to face a significant shock, and it's hard to predict what will happen next. How many options does the U.S. have left to deal with this crisis? Can Washington escape the energy crisis before it turns into a full-blown economic disaster?
Elon Musk was abruptly cut off by Fox News, right in the middle of his speech at CPAC. Once a national icon with a +24 approval rating in 2017, Musk has now plummeted to -19 in 2025. And this is just the beginning of a ripple effect now reshaping his public image, faster than anyone expected.
Chainsaw for bureaucracy! Chainsaw!
At the 2025 CPAC conference, Elon Musk took the stage, holding a chainsaw. Yes, a real one. He used it to symbolize cutting down the bloated federal government. He criticized federal workers earning $50,000 a year, accusing them of being ineffective, underpaid, and still unable to afford health insurance or housing.
Sitting on stage at CPAC with a chainsaw, making fun of firing federal workers who make $50,000 a year.
Musk then claimed he's received death threats because he's trying to do what's right for American taxpayers. But just over 6 minutes into his speech, Fox News suddenly cut the live feed while Elon was still speaking. A shocking move, coming from a network that has traditionally supported both Musk and conservative politics. Days later, Musk returned in a cabinet meeting with Donald Trump, this time as a policy advisor. He announced what he called a success, uncovering financial fraud in the Small Business Administration. His claim? We discovered $330 million in loans issued to children under 11 years old. One of them was a 9-month-old baby who received $100,000. No evidence was presented, but the narrative helped reinforce Musk's image as a government wastebuster. According to a CNN poll, Musk's approval rating has collapsed from +24 in 2017 to -19 in early 2025. Among Democrats, from +35 to -91, a drop of over 120 points. Independents flipped from +17 to -17. Only Republicans showed growth from +18 to +51. But that wasn't enough to rescue his national image.
Change of perception as dramatic as this one. I mean, Elon Musk's net favorable.
And the damage wasn't just political. Tesla's U.S. sales dropped significantly. In 2024, registrations fell 5%. By the first quarter of 2025, another 11% decline. Meanwhile, Hyundai, Rivian, and Ford posted strong growth. The key problem? Only 20% of EV buyers in America are Republicans. By aligning himself with partisan politics, Elon is losing the broader market that once admired him as a non-political tech visionary. Then came a new controversy. Musk posted on X, $50 million worth of condoms were sent to Hamas. The claim was quickly debunked. The shipment actually went to Mozambique as part of an HIV prevention initiative. When questioned, Musk responded,
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000.
In the same cabinet meeting, Musk proposed a controversial budget cap for the National Institutes of Health. He wanted to limit indirect costs to 15%, saying NIH's overhead was too high. But NIH responded with data. Every $1 in funding creates $2.46 in economic benefit. The NIH contributes $93 billion a year to the U.S. economy.
Katie Britt, the senator from Alabama, had to go out there and say, no, don't take our NIH dollars.
Even Senator Katie Britt, once an ally of Musk, spoke out. Don't gut the NIH's budget. If we trade it away, we're sacrificing the future of medical research in America. So what's really happening with Elon Musk? This isn't just a personal downfall. It's a full-blown stress test for how far technology leaders can push into public policy, and where we, as a society, draw the line between entrepreneurial ambition and political power. Because what's happening to Elon Musk might just be a preview of what's coming next.
China has just responded strongly to Trump's new tariffs, not only targeting American agricultural products, but also threatening critical high-tech industries and vital minerals. How will these strikes affect the U.S. economy and the global market under Trump's leadership? Let's break it down. China has chosen U.S. agricultural products as the first target in this new trade war. Items like soybeans, corn, chicken, and other agricultural products are now facing heavy tariffs. Agriculture is a strategic sector in the U.S. economy, particularly for the Midwestern states that heavily supported President Trump. The U.S. exported nearly $22 billion worth of soybeans to China in 2024, and these new tariffs could push American farmers into financial crisis, even leading to bankruptcies. If China continues imposing tariffs, the impact won't be limited to farmers. It will ripple through the U.S. economy, affecting everything from goods prices to export values. The markets will be disrupted, businesses will struggle to maintain supply chains, and consumers will face higher prices. This could lead to a negative spiral, reducing the competitiveness of American industries on the global market. However, agriculture is just the beginning of China's retaliation strategy. They are also targeting high-tech industries and crucial minerals like rare earth elements, which are essential for manufacturing semiconductors and military equipment. If China tightens its control over these exports, the U.S. will face major challenges in maintaining production of advanced technologies, especially in the defense sector. American tech companies will be forced to contend with higher costs and serious disruptions in supply chains. China could disrupt products like smartphones, computers, and even military gear, slowing production and causing widespread damage to the U.S. economy. If the U.S. cannot find alternative sources, these industries will pay a heavy price. These effects could weaken America's competitiveness in the global tech race, leaving it behind other global powers. Trump has made it clear that he will not back down. The U.S. administration believes these tariffs are necessary to address the trade imbalance and unfair practices from China. However, this also brings significant consequences for the U.S. economy. U.S. markets may face sudden price increases on consumer goods. From smartphones to cars, companies will struggle to maintain supply chains and lower product prices. High-tech products may become more expensive, directly impacting consumers and potentially pushing the economy into inflation. This could reduce purchasing power, increase pressure on small businesses, and create a cycle of rising prices. Moreover, if this situation continues, The instability in the economy could lead to increased unemployment, affecting consumer spending and slowing the recovery of the U.S. economy. These tariff policies will have a widespread impact on all levels of American society, from consumers to investors. China can still deliver major blows to the U.S., especially by controlling rare earth minerals. These minerals are crucial for producing semiconductors and military equipment. If China continues to restrict these exports, the U.S. will struggle to maintain the production of cutting-edge technologies, which will hurt both the tech and defense industries. Specifically, American tech companies will have to seek alternative sources, which will be costly and cause major production delays.